Hello, I'm Jenya Delima. Welcome to Writing and Editing, the author-focused podcast that takes a whole person approach to everything related to both writing and editing. Humor and horror may seem like a strange pairing, but the two are often combined to heighten the impact of one another and to create a more believable world. Here to tell us how to perfectly blend the two is author Grace Daly. I'm so thrilled to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really, really excited to be here. You are such a delight to talk to and work with, and I am just thrilled.
Well, and congratulations on your recent release too, which is a fantastic book, by the way, for everyone who is listening. So if you want to start us off by talking a little bit about that.
For sure. So my debut novel, The Scald Crow, just came out. It is a horror comedy set in the Midwestern United States in Illinois and Chicagoland. It is about chronic pain and invisible illness and invisible disability. It's also about medical trauma and childhood trauma, but it's funny, I promise.
It is. There are moments where you laugh out loud.
Thank you. And then there are a lot of Irish folklore themes. There's a very evil bird in it if you hate birds.
Yes.
There's a really wonderful rescue cat in it if you love cats. So I think there's kind of something for everyone. Or at least
Best
that's how I tried to write it. Thank you. Yeah. Coo is the name of the cat. Coo is Irish for hound. And so he's a cat named Dog, and he is everyone's favorite character, and everyone is right. He's the best character.
I did fall in love with him pretty instantly, yeah.
Yeah, there's actually a fun little like Easter egg. I don't know if this counts as an Easter egg, but cute little backstory for Koo. So Koo was inspired by a cat that was at a rescue that is just like half a mile from my house, very, very close to me. He in the book is described exactly as that cat truly exists and had the same name at the rescue in real life as in the book and everything.
Oh,
And I wanted to adopt that cat so bad, and I just couldn't afford another cat. And so I had to watch
so
him get
real.
adopted by some other, I'm sure, perfectly loving family.
Yeah, I'm sure they're just as good as you would have
I'm
been.
sure.
Whatever, it's
And
fine.
so I wrote him into my book instead as like
Aw.
a little fuzzy muse.
Well, so going back to our theme, why do you think that humor and horror go so well together?
Yeah, so humor and horror, in my opinion, are natural bedfellows. Horror and comedy are both really interesting genres, in that also with romance, they're genres that depend very heavily on bringing up genuine emotional responses.
Yes.
Most other genres have some other aspect that they're focused on, characterization or plot or a particularly twisted mystery or an exciting, twist in a thriller or something like that. And I'm not saying that horror can't have those things or shouldn't have those things. A lot of those things are aspects of any good book. But what defines horror is the evocation of fear, terror, disgust, revulsion. That's what really defines horror and what makes horror to me.
Mhm.
Comedy, similarly, only really works if it's funny, if
Yes.
it makes you laugh, if it does truly bring up that emotion. And then romance, again, only really works if you are instigating those feelings of like love, attraction, like eroticism, desire, sensuality. And so
Yeah.
all those genres really rest on emotion. And so I think they're kind of natural bedfellows. And the other reason why I think horror and comedy interplay so well is because there's a natural tension and release that happens. When you
Oh,
get
well
scared, you
said.
go, and then you start to laugh. You you like relax it. And
Mhm.
so when you do a horror comedy combo, instead of the reader experience being this constant like tension, tension,
Yeah,
tension,
yeah.
tension, 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 you get tension release, tension release, tension release. And so in my opinion, like as a reader and as a consumer of media, I like horror comedy more than I like straight horror because I get to enjoy a greater breadth of emotions, and
Mhm.
that tension feels more tense when contrasted with the release of the humor.
Yeah.
Um, And then my last reason for combining horror and comedy is specifically I like to write about disability. And I'm going to be honest with you, I'm disabled myself. Obviously, your listeners can probably infer that. And I feel like I have the right to say this as a disabled person, and maybe other disabled people feel differently, but I think it's a bummer. I don't, my disability involves a lot of chronic pain. It severely limits what I'm able to do. And I don't want to say that, like, my life is any less rich or any less valuable, because it still is. But I did lose a lot when I became
Uh,
disabled,
yeah.
and it does involve a lot of suffering. And my first manuscript that I ever wrote, which is unpublished and probably shouldn't be published, I'm going to be honest, I wrote it for me. And it was all about, when I was first disabled and all of these complicated feelings. And it's a bummer. It's a bummer. No one wants to read it. It's just
Aw.
it's just a bummer. It really is. Like, it's not a pleasant read. I don't even know if I want to reread it. And I wrote the thing. And so I like combining horror and comedy, specifically when I'm talking about disability, because I think it keeps it from being just this, like, funeral dirge bummer fest. If you can still have this lightness, this levity, this kind of like sly wink towards the camera, it makes it all a little bit more bearable.
Right. And it's not as if we go through life only feeling misery and pain when we have something like that. We're still experiencing those little pockets of amusement, but also what it says about that person or that character if their personality doesn't allow them to laugh at some of these antics that are right in front of their face, as an example, which I'd like you to bring in with your main character if you want to share an example of that.
Oh, for sure. At the top of my mind is the scene where she adopts the cat, just because we keep talking about
He's
poo.
just, people will understand why as soon as they read it.
Yeah,
Good.
it's a really great scene. So that scene is very fun. Our main character, Briege, goes into this cat rescue. And when she walks in, she is immediately greeted by this used car salesman of a cat rescue guy.
Yes, he's
He's
fantastic
this
too.
middle-aged man with a handlebar mustache and a big American flag shirt on. And she walks in and she mentions that she might be interested in adopting a cat. And he says something to the effect of, like, "What a lovely day. I woke up this morning and I thought to myself, it's going to be a lovely day. And now here it is, look, being lovely." And he just talks in this, like, constant, super friendly, super
Yes.
affectionate, over the top, very Midwestern fire hose of, like, intense friendliness.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter what she says in reply either. He always has this really quick response that just switches the narrative to include whatever it is she's just said, so
Yeah,
that it is now still overwhelmingly positive and pushing her toward what he thinks she should be doing.
she should be adopting a cat.
Yes, and that is
um,
really his, yes.
he's got one goal and he's laser focused on it. This is a real man. This is the man that the cat I do own, Molly. This is the man who convinced me to adopt my cat, Molly. It was a very effective strategy. I did walk out with that cat.
That's how you knew it would
uh,
work in the book.
I knew it would work in the book. Yeah. And I mean, I wish I knew his name. I wish I could, like, create, like, some sort of fan account for him. Because it was like watching Da Vinci paint, watching this man hawk cats to people. It was really incredible
Gosh,
stuff.
yes. As you were talking, though, too, I just thought how that subversion of expectations can also work so well, both with horror and humor, because he goes against every single stereotype you see about a cat rescuer or quote unquote cat person. He does
Yeah.
not fit that vibe at all from what we're usually presented with. And I think that's also something that makes it so effective.
Yes, yes, it's very fun. Yeah. And that was my experience when I met the real man. Between the American flag shirt and the handlebar mustache, I mean, you're not expecting, like, cat lover
Right.
extraordinaire, and he really just was effusive, and it was beautiful to see. And I just love that. I love that subversion of expectations, and I love that all of these things really do exist if you just
Yeah.
open your eyes to them and if you're just kind of ready to laugh at all of the fundamental absurdity of everything that's around you all the time. Everything is so weird.
It really is. And then you just bring that weirdness out in different ways. Is it
Yeah.
going to scare the pants off of you, or is it going to make you pee your pants from laughing so hard?
Yep.
Let's find out.
And the fun thing is that, often one man's, terror is another man's, very funny. Like
Yes.
clowns, the ultimate
Hmm.
example. And so often you can like look at something and then just turn it around and see a completely different side of it.
Oh, yeah. Have you done that in any of your work?
Ooh, not as much in the Scald Crow. There's a little bit of it in the Scald Crow, like the painting of Jesus that is constantly moving around. And in some sections, it's very frightening because how is it moving by itself? How is it ending up in these places? Isn't that so terrifying? It's such a mystery. But, at one point, she opens, I think, like a drawer or maybe the refrigerator, and the
Oh, yeah. I
Jesus
think it's the
painting is like
fridge. Yeah.
there. And she goes, Jesus, we can't keep meeting like this together. You know? And so, like, on the one hand, it's very scary how it's moving around, but on the other hand, like, what is this? Like,
Right.
like,
Because it definitely is ridiculous. Yeah. And again, it's all based on the character's reaction to it,
yeah,
not even really the event, because it's how
yeah,
she's addressing it. Because there are times you can see that she's perplexed or she starts doubting herself. Did I hang it up yesterday? Did I
yeah.
get the camera out from the garage? Yeah. And then the other times, right, like then where she has a little quip to go along with it.
Yeah, and it just gets a little silly. So I did it a little bit in Scald Crow, but I have a fantasy novella coming out in 2026 called The Star of Kilnaley. And that one is like fantasy comedy, like think like Princess Bride crossed with Irish folklore.
Oh.
Yeah, and it's set in like a fantasy version of the American Midwest. And in that one, I took a lot of like things that should objectively be scary or like haunting. Like the Fae and, these
Oh,
concepts
yeah,
of these
yeah.
like all-powerful gods and fantasy Midwest, it's like the landscape is the fantasy Midwest. So it's like oceans of rolling prairie and the
Yes,
Mississippi River and like, like bison and stuff like
right.
that. I think the Midwest is like very, very cool and everyone thinks it's very boring and I think everyone's wrong. I think it's awesome. I love the Midwest. Anyways, so in that one, I do a lot of that subversion because since I was thinking of that one really like straight as a comedy and it doesn't have like any horror elements to it at all, that one is all like across the board, like me taking things that sometimes seem mundane, it's the Midwest, or sometimes seem like they should be super awe inspiring or deeply unsettling, and just making them silly and quippy. Again, very Princess Bride style.
Yeah, very fun.
Yeah, I
So,
like to have fun.
how do you think that your choice of POV enhanced the ability to add humor to this story?
The POV choice was 100% a vehicle for the humor.
Mhm.
Briege, the character, is very dry and witty and has just, an ocean of quips. Just everything that happens, she's just got these like little snappy comebacks for. And a lot of the humor does come from her having those little quips
Mhm.
or her being so overwhelmed between her disability and, the haunting that's happening. Her just
Right.
being so overwhelmed that she just does the mental equivalent of throwing her hands up. And she's just like, all right, whatever, fine. Okay, I just found some more dismembered body parts. We're just going to put those in the freezer. We're not going to worry about it. We're not going to worry about it. And so a lot of the humor comes from her perspective. So having that first person perspective was very important for this book. Particularly because there are other characters, but the vast majority of the book, Briege is by herself. So
Mhm.
she's not having a lot of conversations. She's talking to the reader. And
Yeah.
so a lot of those quips are coming from her internal monologue. I also put it in present tense because I like the feeling of immediacy that present tense brings. And so Ainsley Hogarth, I believe, who wrote Mother Thing, gave me this really lovely blurb. And she said something to the effect of she loved the main character because it felt like you could just pick up the phone and call her, and that
Yes.
she was just going to tell you this story, like the same, like reading the book is like having your friend on the phone telling you this ridiculous story of what's happening. I was really pleased when I saw that blurb because that is very much the vibe I was going for. Is I wanted you to feel like your friend was calling you and was like, "Oh my god, you are not gonna believe."
Yes. And she does have some conversations with her friend, and it still has that very same voice.
Yes,
So,
yes,
yeah.
yes. No matter what context you put Briege in, she is always Briege. She is.
Yes.
It's odd because she has very low self-esteem and low confidence, and yet she can't help but be herself.
Yes.
And but I think
Uh,
she just doesn't know how to be any other way.
yeah, exactly. It's almost, I don't want to say that she overshares, but she's just so brutally honest with everything that she's thinking and feeling, and then it just sort of like word vomits out of her, whether
Yes,
she wants it
yeah,
to or not. Yeah.
yeah. I do think that an alternate title for the Scald Crow could be Trauma Dumping, the novel. But it's funny, I promise.
Well, as you were writing or maybe revising, were there any techniques you used to make sure that the humor and the horror elements both landed?
Oh, yeah. So, my number one technique, and I will stand by this, is my best friend is my main beta reader, and she is a wonderful beta reader. She was born to see my vision.
Aw.
And she has ADHD. And at the time of me writing The Scald Crow, she was trying to get pregnant, and she has since gotten pregnant. Congratulations, Annalise.
Yay,
And she's had the
congratulations.
baby, and everything's, top notch baby. Anyways, she has ADHD, and so she wasn't able to take any of her medications or anything either.
Oh, right.
And so she's got a whole bunch of coping mechanisms, but there's this natural tendency to like having some trouble focusing on books, especially just like a written book and not an audiobook. It's not what she's great at. And so she's an amazing beta reader because as much as she loves me, if I have written something that is not emotionally resonant or interesting or compelling in some way, she can't do it. She can't read it. She's not going to. And it's perfect because she doesn't even need to tell me that she doesn't think it's good. She just needs to tell me, "Oh yeah, I haven't gotten around to it. I got to this point and then I
Oh,
got distracted and I stopped." And then I know, okay, so that's what I need to fix. And it's
yes.
perfect. It's absolutely perfect. And so that's one of my big litmus tests for whether or not like my horror aspect or my comedy aspect is working. And then my other litmus test, and this is the one that I don't know if I can truly recommend to other writers, but it is what I do. And it's that if I don't have my own emotional reaction while I'm
Uh,
writing, then it's not good enough. Like if I'm not connecting to it as the writer, how can I
mhm.
expect the reader to connect to it? But I do take this to an extreme that, again, I don't know if I would fully recommend. Because, like, I'll be like, if it's a sad scene and if the character is crying and I'm not crying, I'm like, no, I need to rework this until I'm crying. I mean, it's not always a pleasant experience. It's a lot of fun for the comedy scenes, but for the upsetting scenes, ooh, boy, howdy. I don't know if I'd recommend it, but it does work.
Well, we'll just put a little disclaimer in there
Yeah,
about.
there's got to be better ways.
Well, was there ever any concern that some of the funnier moments might take away from the tension or even that story's momentum as it came closer and closer to the real horror unfolding?
That is definitely a concern. And the truth is that I don't know if I fully landed the plane. Like, I think I did a good job for like me as a reader. And I think, like most of my beta readers like really vibed with what I ended up doing. But part of the problem with writing in these genres that are heavily emotion focused, like horror, like comedy, is that they're inherently subjective. And so for me, I feel like I landed the plane, but I know I've gotten like some, like early reviews that have said that they thought the ending was too light and too funny for
Okay.
the like otherwise harrowing topic of the novel. And then I've gotten other people saying that they found the book so upsetting at points that they had to put it down for several days until they could like come back and feel emotionally ready to like grapple with it. And that's such opposite reactions. And so I do think it's difficult to thread that needle in a way that's going to work for everyone.
Oh, I
And
don't think I can.
unfortunately,
Yeah.
yeah. And unfortunately, I think when you're writing to evoke emotion, that's just always going to be a trouble. And so, on some level, I do think I just need to keep writing the books that I want to read and just
Yeah.
hope that I'm enough of a person that other people vibe with it.
I definitely vibed with it.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad. It's a vibes-based economy, and vibes are very important to me.
Yes. Well, I will trade you many vibes for your next project. So, were there ever any moments there where you maybe had some humor and then you realized it just wasn't working and you took it out? Or maybe even the opposite with too much horror? So, thinking about some of those readers who said it was too heavy and they had to put it down, was it ever heavier?
The ending got a total rewrite. So
Ah.
the original ending was darker, much vaguer in terms of like the actual outcomes
Mm-hmm.
for Briege. I'm trying to not give any spoilers, but the original ending was significantly less funny. There were significantly less comedy elements in the original ending. The outcomes were vague and not necessarily quite as neat. It doesn't tie up super neatly now, which I did on purpose because disability and chronic illness very rarely end in a completely neat and satisfying way. And I wanted that to carry through. But the ending is clearer and more concrete now than the original version was. And that was a request from my editor when she bought the book because there was a fear. And in retrospect, I do think I agree with her that the ending wasn't tonally in line with the rest of the book being so comedic. That we didn't want this feeling of it being this book about a woman struggling with invisible illness and disability, and then it to end and the reader to be left being like just forlorn. And so, yeah, there was a lot more comedy injected into the rewrite of the ending. And I am actually much happier with that rewritten ending than I was with the original.
Mm-hmm. What was the hardest part about doing those revisions for you?
Thinking of how to make it funny because it really was like this dark, horrifying reveal. And how do I bring levity to
Um,
something so, so dismal? That was very tough. I had to think about how to bring more comedy and more levity into that because my inclination was to be very dark with it.
yeah.
Uh, but again, I'm really glad I did. I really think it adds something to the story, and I think it's more in line with Briege's character too.
Yeah. Well, speaking of characters, how do you think that humor helps us build empathy with them or a feeling of connection?
Oh, totally. That's a very good question. It's very natural to like someone who makes you laugh.
Yeah.
It's very, very natural to want to spend that time with that person. And that is one of the reasons why I like writing comedy and why I liked writing Briege, because she does feel Some early reviews have said that she's whiny, and they're right. She is. She's very whiny. She's whining. I think she's appropriately whiny. My
Yeah.
opinion is that she's suffering greatly and that it's normal to whine when you're suffering.
Yeah.
But she does. She complains a lot, I think with good reason. But
Exactly. Yes, she has
yeah,
really good reasons to be
I think
whining.
she's got some really good reasons to be whining. I think it's fair. But no, so I do think that that's fair. She is. But I think that it helps cut it a lot. Like it helps cut through some of the complaining and the whining, and it makes her still, more lovable, more affable, more likable, that she's funny about it. Instead of being like, ah, there goes Briege again, you end up going like, oh, there goes Briege again. It ends up being like this more likable, more pleasant experience.
Mhm. Well, before we end, what's something that always makes you laugh when you need a break from the world of horror, or maybe just a break from the real world in general?
Ooh, lots of things. Okay, so number one, and these are recommendations for all my romance readers out there. Rainbow Rowell and Tessa Dare, who both write some real top-notch romantic comedies. I go back to their books time and time and time again when I'm looking for comfort, when I'm looking for something funny, when I'm looking for something light. Rainbow Rowell and Tessa Dare don't ignore reality and don't ignore hard things, but they do a great job of bringing in this lightness, this levity, and this fun. And I really like them a lot for that. Otherwise, I am a huge fan of the British, and there's also a New Zealand version, an Australian version, a Finnish version, a Spanish version, a bunch of different variations. The British panel show Taskmaster is so fun. A lot of it's on YouTube for free. Taskmaster, one word. Every season, they get a new group of comedians, of 5 comedians, and they set those comedians tasks, things like knock over all the rubber ducks on that wall without crossing this line. Write a song about this woman, and then they bring in a random woman. And it's so funny because it is comedians doing it. And as the season progresses, you get to know these comedians, and it's always in small countries. So the comedians always all know each other and are
Ah,
always already kind of friends or frenemies. And so you get to like learn them as friends. You get to learn them as people. You get to learn their comedy styles. It's very silly. It's very light. It's very comforting. It is my absolute top comfort show. So Taskmaster, big recommendation. And then the last one that I've been really, really into recently is College Humor's own streaming service called Dropout. They've got a lot of really fun comedy shows on Dropout. They do a lot of really cool experimental, very interesting comedy. But when I say experimental, I'm not talking like literary highbrow experimental. I'm just talking like
great.
legitimately, it's different from other things you've seen. A lot of the times it's very unexpected, it's very new. The comedians who work at Dropout, I know, have really good benefits and are really well supported by the owner of the company and the CEO. And you can just tell, again, that they're friends. And you can just like kind of feel this like love and mutual respect that they have for one another. And so it's just very, very pleasant watching.
Oh, good. Well, thank you for all those recommendations. I know I've already logged a few away in my brain for later.
Wonderful. Yeah. Taskmaster, if you're feeling sick, Taskmaster is my flair show. So yeah, all my Disabilla babes out there, give it a go.
All right, definitely going to watch that. Thanks so much
Love it.
again.
Thank you. Have a great rest of your day.
You too. And thank you for listening. And be sure to check out the show notes for additional information, including all of Grace's links and a link to her other interview that I did with her. And then please join me next week when we'll have another special episode along with our regularly scheduled Thursday episode. Thanks again. Bye.